Hi there. This is Sarah Peasley, hand knitter. It's Monday. It's Monday. It's Monday, December 29th, I think, maybe 28th. It's Monday, December 28th, year 2020. Just a few days left. I am coming to you live from Zoom studio number 1 or 2. I forget which I labeled them. I'm at the seated one this time. I forgot to have my Zoom. It's not Zoom, it's Facebook Live. I forgot to do it last week. Completely forgot. But this week, I want to tell you about my class for stitches at home that's coming up in January. I'm going to put the, if I did this correctly, I'm going to put the, link and the days and times in the chat. And I would like to point out to you that all times are central time, central whatever. And what that means is that I don't know when they really start. I know that the days are the same. We don't have day zones like we have time zones, but yeah, we're later. So if it says 2 to 4, it's going to be 3 to 5 my time, Eastern. I'm in Eastern. Never try to do math or times of day or figure out how old somebody is based on their birth year. Yeah, can't do that live. Not well, anyway. So we're going to learn how to do some finishing in January. I've got 4 2-hour sessions. That's 8 hours of finishing. But we're going to start with nothing. There's 0 homework for the class. Yay! And we're going to end up with something that looks a lot like, well, mostly like this little guy. This sweater is what we're making. We're not making a sweater to fit your niece or your grandchild or the kid next door. We're making a sweater that's this size so that we can all focus on the techniques we're going to learn instead of making it fit your niece or your grandchild or the kid next door. And then you can, we can tweak it later if you want. But the point is we're going to start with the very beginning with the cast on, because decisions you make for things like the cast on row can make a difference in the finishing of your garment. So we're going to start with casting on for the first sleeve. These sleeves have a little ribbed border, 1 by 1 rib. We're going to cast on. We're going to knit a little border. We are going to it looks like we're going to increase from the border to the stockinette stitch sleeve. This one's yellow. I just held up the orange one. To the stockinette stitch sleeve, and we'll talk about why you might want to do that or not. And we will start with increasing on the sleeve as it goes from the cuff up to the armhole. There's not a lot of increasing for this sleeve because it's for a little kid. This first session starts with that. And we're also, I have my notes so I can tell you what we're going to start with. We'll also start with the right front. It's right front as you're wearing the sweater or whatever. It's not the right front as you look at the sweater. That's the right front as I look at it, but this is the right front as I would wear the sweater, but I can't because it's too small because I'm not the person that I'm knitting it for. But regardless, so the red is the right front in this case. And so we'll start, this right front has a garter stitch border, so that's different. And so we'll talk about how the border choice and the cast on row might affect your finishing later on. And then we'll get started on the right front. And let me see what I think I want. We'll talk about the left front and the back. Left front looks a lot like the right front, except it's a different color. Because that's one thing we're going to do so we can keep track. Oops, sorry, this one. That's the left front as you're wearing it. And then the back, oh look, it's yet another color. And the good news is, the bad news is, your homework after the first session is to knit the first sleeve, the right front as you're wearing the sweater, the left front as you're wearing the sweater, and the back. It's a lot of knitting, but the second session is a week later. So that's handy. So the first session is on January 9th. Oh, that's soon, isn't it? January 9th from 2 to 4 Central Time. So I think that's 3 to 5 my time. We'll figure it out. And then the second session is January 16th. That's a whole week later, from 10 to 12 Central Time, which would be 11 to 1 my time, Eastern Time. Or, you know, if you're on the other coast, you have to figure that out. It's earlier. Yeah, so 10 a.m. to 12. And also on that same day, we meet again from 2 to 4 Central Time, 3 to 5 my time. And then we also meet the next day, the 17th, from 2 to 4 Central Time, 3 to 5 my time. And what happens is we have all the pieces that we knit over that week. And so then we put them all together. You might have noticed that we're missing a sleeve. That is correct. You don't have to knit that sleeve for your homework. Yay! But you do have to knit it in one of those other 3 classes, because we're going to do the second sleeve from the top down, pick up stitches and work down with decreases, ending with the ribbing instead of starting with the ribbing, increasing, and sewing it in. So 2 different options. They look identical. Well, they don't, obviously, because one's orange and one's yellow. But we'll do one from the bottom up and one from the top down so that you'll know how to do both of those things. And one of the shoulder seams is going to be bound off at the top of the front and the back and sewn. So stitches to stitches across the top. And the other one is going to have a 3-needle bind off, in case you've never done that, so that you'll see how to do that. And that joins stitches to stitches as well. And then the sleeve seam, boop, which you can't even see because it's so perfect, although you can see the increases or decreases. Those are increases. So this is the one that's done from the bottom up. Oop, oh boy, that way. There you go. There you can see the increases kind of appearing out of nowhere. And the other side should have decreases. Oh good, it does, because it was done from the top down. Oh, yeah. So they're disappearing into nowhere in that case. And then there's also the same seam as on the sleeve is here, not as invisible because it's 2 different colors, but it really is invisible if it's the same color. Whoop, it's pretty darn flawless. So that's called mattress stitch. That's rows to rows. So stitches to rows is the third kind, and that would be where you sew your sleeve cap into, I think it's the other one, but into the side of the front and back at the shoulder. So we have stitches to stitches across the top of the shoulder, rows to rows across the side seam and the sleeve seam, and then stitches to rows where we put the sleeve into the body. And then we're picking up, that's a new thing, on the other sleeve and working down. So picking up isn't seaming, but it's joining. And it's actually picking up and knitting. Picking up can be, it's misused a lot. Picking up can be just picking up a blob, technical knitting term, of the stitch that's on the edge, which is sometimes done. Usually what people mean is pick up and knit, which means you're going to poke your needle through the fabric, wrap yarn around it, and pull the wrap through like you're creating a new stitch, which you're knitting, so it's pick up and knit. Different from just picking up. And we're also going to pick up and knit our border. Oh, okay, you maybe just saw something. These buttons are not sewn on. If you recall, I recently did a class on sewing on buttons and zippers, but I have not yet sewn these on. So they're on with little safety pins, whoop, there, that have a little bump in the back. They're different from the stitch marker safety pins. I'll show you what it looks like. It's pretty cool. So it's a cheat. It's like, look, it's done, but it's not really done. And I would not give these to kids. It's a little, oop, let's do it that way. A safety pin with a little bump in it. And so the bump holds the button and the safety pin's on the back. And hopefully not in the child. So these have been picked up. The blue garter stitch bands have been picked up and worked in garter stitch, obviously. And then we pick up one more band, the brown neck band. And just for something different, we're doing a folded over stockinette stitch band. So it's folded over and sewn down on the inside. And now you can see another secret. I didn't really weave in my ends. I just needed to get a picture of this one. So my ends are kind of like that. That's not the way you normally want to do them, but it's okay. It worked. Hi, Edie. Let's see. And we will talk also about spacing your buttonholes. I don't know about you, but I will often do it in my head and think I did it correctly. Like, oh, I need 5 buttonholes and I have, I don't know, 35 stitches. So therefore something, and then I'll confidently start the row and end up at the end with not 5 buttonholes and not evenly spaced. So we'll talk about how to evenly space your buttonholes. I do have a class on how to even ends, Edie Ekman. Thanks for mentioning that. Doesn't mean I have to do it. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Yay, people. Yeah, I have classes on all these things. I just did buttons and zippers. I did do weaving and ends on Zoom, and it worked pretty well earlier this year. Not early enough that we could do it in person, but earlier this year. And yeah, so this is your chance to learn and also reading your knitting is another one I teach that talks about things like looking at your cast on edge in relation to the rest of your pieces. I also have a blocking class. This is nice and blocked. I just teach a lot of classes. This is a compendium. I don't know if that's the right word. A glomming, that's definitely the right word, of a bunch of finishing techniques in addition to making good decisions from the beginning so that your finishing is easier. I'll tell you one of them. When you cast on, leave a long tail. That's different from doing a long tail cast on, although it can be done in conjunction with doing a long tail cast on, because that long tail can be used to sew up a seam, and then you don't have to bring in another strand of yarn and have 2 more ends to weave in, because weaving in ends is my least favorite thing to do. Oh wait, maybe it's sewing on buttons. I don't know, but there's a class for each of those. So let's see, what else do you want to know? This yarn is, I'm pretty sure it's Plymouth Galway. It's a worsted weight wool. I would prefer that you use something that can be blocked, so wool or a wool blend, so that you can see the wonders of blocking happen before your very eyes. If your sweater's all curly when you're putting it together, it's a little less fun to put together. If you can kind of flatten out the edges nicely, then it's a little easier to put together. Hi, Liz. Oh, Liz says, I may just have a finishing project for you to tackle. Well, Liz, if you're paying attention, I can teach you how to finish your project. That's the whole idea. But I'd be happy to help you if you need it. Let's see. Yeah, so I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Can't count. I think there's 7 colors. How many do you see? Including the green on the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Green on the back. 5, 6, and then blue. 7. Okay. There's 7 colors. You don't need a lot of them. You need the most for the back. But the idea is that you can see what you're doing when you're sewing the seams or connecting the pieces or picking up the stitches, because you'll be using another color, so you can really easily see what is happening and where your stitch is coming from or going to. So I have 7 colors of worsted weight. Another yarn that you could use is Cascade 220. You could use shepherd's wool from Stonehenge Fiber Mill. It's from Michigan, so that's a great choice. I'm from Michigan. I'm a great choice too. Let's see. Just, Universal has a nice worsted. You could use, I don't know, something from your stash. If you're mixing yarns, try to make them all the same weight. It's better if they're all the same yarn, so that things go together smoothly, but do what you can. And we'll need darning needles. What else do we need? Did I write that down somewhere? Yeah. We'll need darning needles. We'll need, I'd like you to have a sharp darning needle and a blunt darning needle. So they're probably not really called darning needles in that case. A yarn sewing needle and a yarn stabbing needle. For sewing seams, and for picking up stitches, no, we're not picking up stitches with the darning needle. For sewing seams, I like to have a blunt needle so that I'm not splitting through my stitches. And for weaving in ends, I like to have a sharp needle, so I am splitting through my stitches. So we'll do some weaving in of ends too, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Buttons would be a good choice. We'll do a little button tutorial. Large eye needle, Liz, if you're using, yes, for your worsted weight yarn, a large eye needle for the yarn needles, yep. So a blunt one, if you can, most of us have a blunt needle or 12. Look under the couch cushion if you can't find yours. A sharper one, so you can split through the stitches with a blunt one. It just takes more effort. So if you have one that's a little pointier, that would be good. But yeah, large eye so you can get the yarn through it. And then if you want to sew on buttons, you'll want you can use whatever you want. I tend to use sewing thread and a sewing needle, as long as it fits through. You can use something thicker as long as it fits through the, as long as a threaded needle fits through the hole of the button, the shank or the holes. You can use yarn. You can split the yarn into plies. You can use embroidery floss, but I don't recommend it because the garment, the thing that I sewed buttons on with embroidery floss, after a while, the embroidery floss, which was slippery, just kind of said, eh, and kind of spit the buttons off. So that was sad. I had to then sew them on again the way I should have in the first place. So lesson learned, until I forget, and then I'll learn it again, because, you know, that happens. Let's see. I do have, so, and the colors, like if you chose navy blue and black and dark brown and burgundy and forest green, it would not be as easy to put these things together as if they were lighter or brighter colors. So try to think about not using all really dark colors. All really light colors would be good. I would call these bright. Brown is dark, but the rest aren't. So there you go. Also, I always break my own rules. Just a little FYI. And let's see. Yep. Oh, so here's an example of why we might want to block. This is a piece of the sweater. Do you know which piece it is? This is, I believe, that right front. Yep, there's a little neckline. See, doesn't it look like a right front? So it would be a lot easier to sew this piece to this piece, whoop, if those edges weren't all curled. There we go. Nope. Which way's the other way? Which way's the other way? That's a good question. So yeah, if those edges weren't curled under, it would be a lot nicer to weave to sew together. You can do it without blocking, but we will talk about blocking and why it's a good idea. And therefore, I'd like you to have a blockable fiber so you can actually see it in action. What am I forgetting to tell you? January 9th is the beginning. The 16th and the 17th are the other days. There's 4 sessions total. I did put a link to the event in the chat. My dog is scratching. Yeah, I don't know, the normal things. Scissors. Oh, safety pins. I like to use coilless safety pins for all kinds of things. The very first thing you'll use it for, probably, maybe, is to wind up the tail of your yarn. Remember I said to leave a long tail, so you can use it for your seam. And then guess what happens? You accidentally at least once, use the tail instead of the yarn from the ball, right? 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 Yep, we all do that. If you haven't, then you're not trying hard enough. Yeah, Lisa, they're all Central Time, which means we're an hour later. It's on my Sarah Peaslee, my hand knitter calendar on my website, which is sarahpeaslee.com. Oh, I think it is. Oh gosh. It might not be, but I'll put it there and then it'll be in the right time zone when you look at the Google Calendar. Liz makes a yarn butterfly. That works too, but it's not as shiny when you don't use the safety pin. But I also use the safety pins to count rows. I don't know if you noticed the shininess when I held this guy up. I was counting, oh, there, I was counting rows. And I also use them to mark my increases and decreases. Yep, there's more, counting rows. So have a bunch of those handy. Do we need markers? I don't know. You know what happens if you go to the link that I put in there at Stitches Events, stitches.events, and then at the top of that page you get to, you'll see Stitches at Home January, or January Stitches at Home, some combination of those words, and you click on that. and you find my pretty picture, or you find the name of the class, which is, oh, the class is called From Start to Finish. And you click on that, and then it'll tell you what you need for the class, so I don't have to remember. Yeah, pencil is not a bad idea. I will send you notes. Actually, yeah, I already sent them, not to you, but they're on their way. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting to tell you something really important. It's through Stitches. There's other teachers. You can take other classes because you're only beholden to me for 2-hour sessions. So if you're really gung ho, you could take another class too. And they have market. They have some kind of demonstrations going on throughout the whole week, I believe. Um, and there's an opening day meet and greet, and there's an end of the 2 weeks. I don't know. I call it the grand finale. I don't know what it's really called. And yeah, they have coffee hour in the morning. I don't know if it's hour. They have coffee time in the mornings, and it's not exactly like going to Stitches, but for a while we're all there together, and it's really fun. We get to see each other. So I think that's all I'll say, unless somebody has a burning question about the class, or any other burning question that I may or may not know the answer to. Hit me up. I hope you had a lovely December. I hope you had nice, oh, I don't know, what do we say that's safe? A nice, warm holiday feeling at some point during the last few weeks. And I hope that we all have a really happy new year. Yeah, 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 what can go wrong? So, as usual, stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, keep your distance, keep knitting, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.